I spent 8 years holding my family together until I realized they were the ones tearing me apart. I still remember the exact moment everything snapped because it didn't feel dramatic or loud. It felt quiet, like something inside me just switched off, and it happened while I was driving to work at 2:17 in the morning, exhausted, running on maybe 3 hours of sleep spread across 2 days. Staring at the empty road while my phone buzzed with another bill notification I already knew I couldn't cover alone. And that's when it hit me. If I kept going like this, nothing would change, not next month, not next year, not ever. And the scariest part wasn't the bills or the stress. It was the realization that I had been living like this for 8 years and nobody, not my mom, not my brother, ever planned to change anything. Because why would they when I was always there to fix it? Always the one picking up extra shifts, selling my own stuff, skipping sleep, skipping meals sometimes, just to keep everything barely holding together while they sat there like it was normal, like it was expected, like it was my job. And maybe the worst part is that for a long time, I believed it was, because when my dad and grandparents died when I was barely 18, everything just got dumped on me without anyone even asking if I could handle it. It was just assumed, like I didn't have a choice, like my life had already been decided for me. And I tried, I really did. I worked, I stayed, I paid for things I shouldn't have had to pay for. I kept the lights on, the rent somewhat under control. I even helped. When I moved out temporarily by just sending money back home, thinking maybe if I just held things together long enough, they'd step up, but they never did, not once. And instead, my mom would forget to pay bills for months while still asking me for money, lying about expenses, spending it on cigarettes, or giving it to my brother. And my brother, he just existed, sitting in his room, playing games, eating, doing nothing, and somehow still being treated like he was the good one, the one worth protecting, while I was the one expected to sacrifice everything. And even now, it still messes with my head how normal it all felt at the time. Like I didn't even question it until recently, until things got worse, until the bills stacked higher, until my mom's inheritance disappeared, until she finally got a part-time job, not because she wanted to help, but because she had no other choice. And then my brother finally got a job too. And for a second, just a second, I thought things might actually improve. Like maybe we could split everything evenly, breathe a little. Maybe I could even start focusing on EMT school like I always wanted. Maybe I could finally build something for myself. But that feeling didn't last long, because about a week after telling me he'd move out in 6 to 12 months, so we could plan things properly, he just left. No warning, no discussion, just gone. And when I brought it up, not even angry, just trying to figure out how we were supposed to handle everything now, he flipped, like completely flipped, called me an asshole, told me I didn't do anything, like those 8 years meant nothing, like I hadn't been carrying both of them this entire time. And then he cut me off completely, just like that, like I didn't exist, and took the car with him too. The car my mom paid off. The car she still pays insurance for, even though now she has to walk to work. And the craziest part is she didn't even get mad, didn't argue, didn't try to fix anything. She just accepted it like she always does, like consequences don't apply to him, only to me. And that's when things really started to fall apart, because suddenly his share of the rent, the bills, everything was just gone. And guess who was expected to make up the difference again? And I tried. I stayed up for days applying to jobs, going to interviews, pushing myself harder than I ever had before, while my mom sat on the couch watching TV, vaping, telling me she'd figure something out, like she's been saying since 2005, talking about selling things from the garage that she never sells because she needs a camera. Even though we've explained 100 times that phones exist, apps exist, solutions exist, but she doesn't want solutions. She wants time. She wants someone else to step in and fix it like always. And meanwhile, the rent keeps getting pushed back. First to the 5th, 5th to the 8th, 8th to the 15th. And now she's talking about the 24th like it's no big deal, like the landlord's patience is infinite, like reality won't eventually hit. And I'm sitting there doing the math in my head, calculating everything, realizing that even if I somehow cover this month, there's no way I can keep doing it. Not without destroying myself completely, not without giving up any chance of a future. And that's when that quiet switch flipped inside me. And for the first time in 8 years, I thought something I'd never let myself think before. What if I just stopped? What if I didn't fix it? What if I walked away? And as that thought settled in, something else followed right behind it, something colder, sharper. What if I didn't just walk away? What if I let everything finally collapse? At first, the idea felt wrong, like I was betraying something or someone, because for so long my entire identity was built around being the one who holds everything together, the one who sacrifices, the one who fixes problems before they become disasters. So even thinking about stepping back made me feel like I was doing something selfish or even cruel. But then I started replaying everything in my head. The late nights, the empty bank account, the times I skipped opportunities because I had to stay and help, the lies, the manipulation, the complete lack of effort from both of them. And slowly that guilt started turning into something else, something heavier, something that had been building for years without me realizing it. And that was anger, not explosive anger, but a deep, steady kind that just sits there, growing stronger every time you remember another moment where you were used. And once that feeling fully settled in, the decision became a lot clearer because I wasn't walking away from a family that needed me. I was walking away from a situation that was draining me dry while giving nothing back. And that's when I started planning, quietly, carefully, not telling anyone, not even my girlfriend at first, just thinking through everything step by step. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something that completely changed everything. I wasn't on the lease. Years ago, when my mom asked me to co-sign, I said no because something felt off, something didn't add up. And for once, I actually trusted that feeling. But my brother didn't. He signed without thinking. And now that decision was about to come back in a way none of them saw coming, because it meant I wasn't legally tied to any of this. Not the rent, not the damages, not the cleaning requirements, nothing. And once that clicked in my head, it felt like a door opened that I didn't even know existed, because suddenly I had an out, a real one. Not just a fantasy or a what if, but an actual way to leave without being dragged back in. And that's when I started reaching out to friends casually at first, just testing the waters. And almost immediately I had multiple offers. Places I could stay for a fraction of what I was paying now. No insane bills, no constant stress, just normal living. And it almost didn't feel real. Like I had been stuck in survival mode for so long that the idea of stability felt foreign. But at the same time, there was this constant tension in the back of my mind because I knew what would happen once I left. I knew the rent would fall behind even more. I knew the landlord would eventually step in. I knew the cleaning costs alone would be a nightmare with the condition of the house, especially with the cats that had basically been allowed to do whatever they wanted for years. And I knew my mom wouldn't be prepared for any of it because she never is. And for a moment, just a brief moment, I considered helping one last time. Maybe covering part of the rent, maybe paying for a cleaning service, maybe renting a truck to help move everything out. But then I remembered my brother's voice telling me to fuck off, cutting me out like I meant nothing. And I remember my mom sitting there doing nothing while I ran myself into the ground, trying to fix problems she created, and that hesitation disappeared. Because why should I keep giving when all it's ever done is enable them to stay exactly the same? And that's when the plan shifted from just leaving to letting them face everything on their own for the first time. And it wasn't about revenge in the loud, dramatic sense. It was quieter than that, more calculated, more final, because I wasn't yelling, I wasn't fighting, I wasn't even explaining. I was just removing myself completely and letting reality do what it's been trying to do for years. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this might actually be the only chance they have to change, because as long as I'm there, they don't have to. And maybe that's the hardest part to accept, that sometimes helping someone isn't actually helping them. It's just delaying the consequences they need to face. And once I accepted that, everything became simpler. Colder, more focused, I started saving every dollar I could, stopped covering anything extra, stopped stepping in when something wasn't paid on time. And at first they didn't even notice because they were so used to things just working out. But then the cracks started showing, the tension started building, the late notices became more frequent, and I could feel something coming, something inevitable, like a storm that had been forming for years was finally about to hit. And the craziest part is they still didn't see it. They still thought things would somehow fix themselves like they always do. And I remember sitting there one night, looking around the house, the clutter, the unpaid bills, the mess that had been ignored for so long, and thinking, this is what happens when no one takes responsibility. This is what happens when everything is built on one person carrying the weight. And for the first time, I wasn't scared of what would happen next. I was curious because I knew one thing for sure. Once I walked out that door, everything they had been avoiding for years was going to come crashing down all at once. And this time, I wasn't going to be there to stop it. The day I left wasn't dramatic. There was no big argument, no shouting, no final confrontation. And honestly, I think that's what made it hit harder because I didn't give them a moment to prepare or react. I just packed my things slowly over a couple of days, moved what I could without drawing attention. And then one morning, before anyone else was awake, I loaded the last of my stuff into my car, stood in the doorway for a second longer than I expected, and just left. No note, no explanation, nothing, because after 8 years, I didn't owe them one. And for the first time in a long time, the drive away didn't feel heavy. It felt quiet, almost peaceful, like the constant noise in my head had finally stopped. But that calm didn't last long, because about 2 days later, my phone started blowing up, calls, texts, voicemails, all from my mom at first, confused, panicked, asking where I was, asking why the rent wasn't covered, asking what she was supposed to do, and I didn't answer, not. Right away, I let it sit. I let her feel that uncertainty for once, because that's what I had been living with for years. And when I finally did respond, I kept it simple, no anger, no insults, just the truth. I'm not paying anymore. I've moved out. You'll have to figure things out. And the silence after that message lasted longer than I expected, like she didn't know how to process it. Like the idea of me not stepping in was something she had never even considered as a possibility. And then the reality started setting in for her. And for the first time, she didn't have an excuse. She didn't have a backup plan. She didn't have me. And that's when the messages changed from confusion to desperation, talking about the landlord, the overdue rent, the condition of the house, the cleaning requirements, all the things she had ignored for so long suddenly becoming very real, very urgent problems. And somewhere in the middle of all that, my brother tried to reach out too, not to apologize, not to fix anything, but to ask what was going on, like he had just now realized that his actions actually had consequences. And I didn't respond to him at all because there was nothing left to say. And over the next few weeks, everything unfolded exactly how I knew it would. The landlord got involved, notices were sent, deadlines were given, and suddenly all those it'll be fine moments turned into real pressure, real decisions that couldn't be ignored or pushed off. And I heard through a mutual friend that my mom was scrambling, trying to sell things, trying to borrow money, doing all the things she said she would do for years, but never actually did until now. And part of me felt something when I heard that, not guilt exactly, but something close to it, because despite everything, it's still my family, and seeing them struggle isn't something I enjoy. But at the same time, I knew this was necessary because for the first time, they were being forced to face reality without a safety net. And as time went on, something unexpected happened. I started to feel like a person again, not just a provider, not just a problem solver, but an actual person with time, energy, and options. I started sleeping properly, eating properly, even thinking about my future again, about EMT school, about what I actually want out of life instead of just surviving day to day. And the more distance I had from that situation, the clearer everything became, because I realized that what I thought was loyalty was actually just fear of letting go, fear of what would happen if I stopped holding everything together. And now that I had let go, I could see the truth, which is that some things need to fall apart before they can ever be fixed. And maybe they will figure it out. Maybe they won't, but either way, it's not on me anymore. And that's the part that still feels strange sometimes, that I'm allowed to choose myself, that I'm allowed to walk away from something that's hurting me, even if it means things get worse for others. And if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that being there for people doesn't mean sacrificing yourself completely, because if you lose yourself in the process, then what are you really saving? And sometimes the hardest decision isn't staying and fighting. It's walking away and letting everything you've been holding up finally collapse. And if you've ever been in a situation like that, where you're the one carrying everything while everyone else stands still, I have to ask, would you keep holding it together, or would you finally let go?